further comments from the Minister or the Acting National Commissioner?
Chair, let me just make some remark to allow the Minister to conclude on ours. I happen to have read an article that I found very interesting and at times very confusing. It reads, South Africa needs more social workers, not cops, more police to keep a disconnected populace under control is a recipe for disaster. Then just few lines, the Marikana massacre was the result of a police system that has not changed in any significant way since then. The police cannot indefinitely keep the lead on every angry community protest. Militarization may be the second biggest mistake ever made in modern South African policing policy. The first being the police disbanded specialized units that dealt with specific issues. You can't fix domestic violence with guns. Now, Chair, when I read this article, I'm asking myself, what is it that the social workers are going to do to bring down the counter-crime that we are talking of? These crimes are being committed by people who are wielding illegal firearms. And as the South African Police Service, we do our best to bring these crime levels down to ensure that the same social workers are able to do their work in our communities. Policing remains a thankless job. Despite the efforts that we are putting in to police our society, we continue to be pelted with observations, and I'll call them armchair observations like this. On Sunday, we will be commemorating, it's a commemoration day for those of us who were not able to finish the race. They unfortunately died in the execution of their policing duties. But despite all this, Chair, we remain committed, we remain loyal to the people of this country. We will continue doing our work. What is put before this honorable committee is evidence of men and women in blue who went an extra mile in realizing the mandate that is enshrined in the Constitution of our country. And we are not about to be distracted from that. We believe that we have a role to play towards that Vision 2030. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Minister?
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson and honorable members. Mine is just a few things. They are particularly the last portion of our presentation. There are straightforward kind of experiences that we have gone through as the SAPS, for instance, that we will need to build on. Honourable members would remember, for instance, one is a recent case. But we deployed in a particular manner, for an example, that taught us that the question of police visibility and the question of patrols and so forth does yield results. And one of the results relating to the one experience is that almost everybody in this country had been saying before elections that one was not going to go to elections and one was going to erupt and so on, precisely because of the incidences that took place there. So that's one particular case that we are also studying further and unpacking in terms of what are the future sort of lessons for all of us in the police service. And before then was the manner in which we also dealt with deployments over the festive season. We began to get a feedback right across the board in the South African spectrum, within the South African society, that said, that people felt safe precisely because of police visibility and so on. So that's one pivotal area that we're going to build on. Now, and clearly these particular reports largely suggest that on all areas where we deploy conventional means of policing, for an example, we are registering progress and success. Even in areas where we have not registered the sort of decreases per se or minuses, if I may put it that way, but you're beginning to see a decreasing trend in one form or the other and so on. The only problem area is the issue of contact crime in this country. Now, and that requires an effort far broader than just simply the police service itself, but it requires that we need to begin to engage the overall social outlook of the South African society, for an example, in terms of dealing with patterns of social behavior and so forth, so that we begin to dampen. That approach may have got to begin to dampen the question of the murder rate, attempted rate, and assault GPH, for instance, as contributing factors, for an example, and a myriad of other interventions, for an example, that also must be made at a policy level and also socially speaking in our society. So we find this these particular statistics quite interesting. But as General Sikhukhune said, we have conducted our own research. And it's beginning to tell us quite a number of issues that have got to be looked into. Because behind the figures, the statistics themselves are human lives, but also a particular pattern of behavior and so forth. And that's what we have looked into. And that's why I was saying earlier on that later on this afternoon, in a public engagement, I'll also be going through what the factors are behind the figures as we have them. Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.